Mm, For those of you joining in late, I have entered the phone coordinates here on the chat window once again. I request you all to use the phone coordinates for better audio quality, or in case you're not able to hear me. Give me one moment. Let me copy paste that for all of you. Catherine, I request you to please help out your students in case anyone's not able to hear me. I see any of those chats here, please kind of help them. I can also unmute you if required, Catherine, so you can make announcements later. All right. So a very good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining in on time and waiting for others to join in too. We're going to discuss a couple of topics today. My name is Gayatri, and I'm from uLaw team. We're going to represent a couple of CPD topics, in fact, from as per Law Society guidelines. We're going to discuss everything practice management, and we're also going to discuss Law Society compliances from the bookkeeping aspect. And it's quite interesting, but it's a little heavy topic too. So if any of you have any concerns or any questions during this, 1 hour, 50 minutes session, please feel free to put it on the chat window. I'll try to take it then and there. If not, I'll probably take it at the end. We can have more like a Q&A session. I couldn't do it for the previous class, but I'll be happy to do it this time if I have the time. Speaking of everything practice management, as the name goes by, we're going to discuss everything when it comes to practicing as a legal professional in various provinces in Canada. And starting off with your professional obligations. As a legal professional, what are those obligations that you're required to fulfill, that you're required to accomplish when it comes to communicating with your client, completing the intake and servicing them? A major chunk of it, comes under this. Even though a lot of us might think, hey, client intake is just giving out a piece of paper or a link, handing over some sort of communication tool with them. Could be written form or paper form or, electronic form, whatever it is. And collecting the information from them to open a file. That's all a lot of us think about mostly. But when it comes to the professional obligations that, that is underlying to this particular aspect of, legal professionals, there's a little more than just intaking a client with their data or information, because you have to consider doing a conflict check. You have to make sure you're collecting their driver's license or some sort of client ID to be verified. And, you're also recording the conversations or maybe, any type of communication you have with them. There's so many things that Law Society expects you to do, especially if you're a legal professional practicing. And the first 18 months of becoming a legal professional or a budding legal professional, if I could say, is very crucial, because you are in the eyes of Law Society as a new entrepreneur, where you're required to fulfill certain obligations, because sometimes we are not aware about these and we tend to make these mistakes. And that is what triggers Law Society to come up for an audit or to come up for a random check. There's so many of these that could, probably turn out to be negative sometimes. So this is where we recommend you to fulfill these obligations. We as in Law Society, as also we as a software help you to fulfill these obligations. I could put it that way. So today we're going to see all of these 7 professional obligations that you're required to fulfill from a standpoint of Law Society's eyes, and also how you can use uLaw to, do all of these checks. When it comes to client intake, we are very sure you could do a conflict check, you could do a client ID verification, you could open a file with various file numbering systems that is in place, making sure you are also giving them out their financial documents, including invoices, receipts, even retainer agreements. There's so many of these in relation to financial management. So client intake, file management, financial management, business management, professional time, and personal. So if you ask me, I would say the top 4 topics are the first 4 that you see here in the lines, and last 3 are definitely important too, because you want to strike a balance between your professional, personal, time management, etc. But it totally depends on each person. So I would not stress too much on that part, but I'm going to do the first 4 subtopics that you see here. How do you intake a client? How do you manage their file? How do you manage their financial, documents, financial requirements from Law Society to be done? And lastly, the business management. Because Law Society feels it's not just client management or client's file management, financial management. It's also your business management. How are you managing your business overall? Office expenses, how do you record them? How do you, how do you manage with the finances overall? So all of these falls part of business management too, and professional obligations. First thing first, when you're intaking a client, please remember to choose one of those methods in which you're definitely looking to get information and standardize them, centralize them, standardize them, make sure that there's a consistent method in which you intake a client. That is important. That's more like a foundation that you're laying to fulfill all the professional obligations for client intake, service, and communication. So once you have a method in which you're going to intake a client, then you're going to complete a conflict check to understand whether there is any conflict involved in here and whether you're going to proceed with the file or not. So once you know there's no conflict, then you proceed with determining the fee for this client, whether you're doing a trust or a general, fee. Basically, the difference is that if you're doing a trust retainer collection here, you first of all need to have a trust account in place. And second thing is that if you have a trust account, you need to, and you're collecting a retainer, you need to give them out a retainer letter or an agreement asking them for the same. Okay, so viewer number 34. I'm sorry, you want me to be a little bit more loud? I think I'm already quite loud. In case you feel you're not able to hear me, I would recommend you to dial into the phone coordinates that I'm providing here. It should be much simpler by dialing in. Any of you feel that my voice is too low, that I need to speak up a little bit? Hi. Please feel free to let me know so I can try and. I have a baby at home, so I'm in a different room, but I'm trying to keep my volume a little low. But if in case you all feel, it's too low, let me know, please. All right. So I was talking about the retainer agreement. So when you have completed the client intake, the conflict check, determining whether you're going to collect the fee into the trust or general. And if you're going to collect the fee into the trust, which is mostly the retainer, which is what we call as retainer, and you need to build a retainer agreement. Now, a retainer agreement should be in place, get that signed, and then you deposit the retainer into the trust account. And don't forget to issue them a receipt, right? So it goes in a flow. And lastly, let's say for some reason there's a conflict that you've identified with this potential client. So you haven't proceeded with this file or this client. Let's say you have referred them to a friend or a colleague or somebody you know. So basically, you're not taking up this file and this client. then you need to provide them with a non-engagement letter. It's safe to do so, just so that you're not held responsible in the future if they at all come back to you, hold you responsible for, hey, you know what, I thought you were working on my file. I have my hearing date coming up next week, and I haven't heard back from you. So there's chances that kind of a conversation can lead you somewhere. So that is the reason we, and Law Society too, emphasizes on providing a non-engagement letter to any of your clients that you, potential client rather, that you had, probably gotten in touch with and have not proceeded further. That is the reason we have a non-engagement letter in place, and uLaw, of course, has that. You could use that too for your future in case you're using the program just to browse through all this. You also have the program currently with you, I think. So try to browse through these documents and letters that's available under compliance tabs, I think under contacts and matters respectively. Now about retainer agreement, this is the first piece of, I would say, written form of communication between you and your client, which is, of course, a superior document because it's an agreement where both of you agree upon certain details. You're going to determine the details. It varies between different area of practices, different kind of practices. So keep it simple at the same time, precise, and you're trying to communicate with your client all the important tasks that they are supposed to know, responsibilities, the scope of information matter, representations, method of communications, how frequently you'd like to communicate with them, termination details, and other risks associated. Everything end-to-end covered, because this is your first piece of agreement with them, and this could also be the last piece of agreement, because after this, they're only going to be mostly invoices and statement of accounts and summaries, all of those. So as it is, keep the agreement simple, but also, make sure all the points are noted down there. And once the intake is done, you've issued the retainer agreement, you've created the file with the file numbering checklist, and here's where you need to pay attention to what type of file numbering checklist you're using. Are you using a cross-indexing number? Are you using a alphanumeric number? So if you're using uLaw, you would see upon creating a matter and saving it, you would see a file number coming up automatically. So that is, you have nothing to do with it. So you can just simply continue using whatever is provided there. But if you're using something on your own, manually creating a file and stuff, make sure you have a separate file number for each and every respective matter that you create, and it should be chronologically secured, and try and do electronic files, because no more paper pen method is considered as a wise method to use. And lastly, make sure that all your documents that you have collected are in one place under this file, of course, electronically, and you have a file checklist at the front of the file. So every time you create a document for this client, you want to make sure it's done, and you give a tick over there for completing that file. So a file opening checklist, cross-indexing numbers, separate file numbers for each and every file in the matter. Same client could have two different matters, so you need to create two different file numbers. So that's one of it. And once again, after intake, you create the file, complete all the checklist over there, then you move on to financial management. Now, financial management, the first part of it, of course, starts off with collecting the retainer and issuing them with a receipt. But upon collecting the retainer, eventually you will start off with the work. And when you start off with the work, first thing you want to do is to docket the work that you have completed for this client, or rather work in progress, whatever is the current situation. You would docket them, you would raise an invoice, Then you would move the money from trust to the general. Now, when you move the money from trust to the general, here there are some things to keep in mind. Number one, you are definitely going to raise an invoice. Without raising an invoice, you cannot move money from trust to the general because it's not your money yet. When does it become your money? When you raise an invoice. When you raise an invoice, typically you are sending the invoice to the client, letting them know that, hey, these are the job or work that I've done for you on, or rather worked on for this particular matter, and I have certain amounts lying in trust, which I'm now eligible to move from trust to the general. So just normally issuing an invoice would complete all of this, and you could just move money from trust to the general. So the prompt transmission and delivery of invoices to the client within a specified time with the details of payments, etc., is very important. Without doing that, please never try to move money from trust to the general. So the fee scheduling and determining whether you're going to collect the fee into the trust account, general account, all of these are done. Then the docketing is done. Then you raise an invoice and you move the money from trust to the general if the money is lying in your trust. Now, many of us don't have a trust account. Your practice doesn't require a trust account. So you don't take the headache of opening a trust account. What would you do in that case? You would just have a general account, which is a general business account. So no, you don't have to worry about that part, because if you are not having a trust, just forget about the retainer for a moment. You are raising an invoice for the job done, issuing the invoice to the client, and the client owes you that money. Whether it is lying in the trust or whether the client is going to pay you is a different part. Once you issue the invoice to the client, then if the trust account is not in the picture at all that you're going to do is ask your client to pay the money into the general account directly, right? Because you don't have a trust and you're done with the work, you issued the invoice. So all that you need to do is now, after you've delivered the invoice, ask them to pay into the general account directly. Now that becomes your money. So recording of general accounts through general receipts and disbursement entries are equally important as much as you do your trust. Now, a lot of us think, okay, so I have a trust account and I need to be super vigilant and careful with my transactions in there. And sometimes I see many of them not bothering too much about the general account, and I feel really bad. I go and tell them, hey, you know what, general account's as important as updating your trust account. So making sure that you're recording all the payments, systematic tracking of payments, and recording all the disbursements and receipts, because general receipts and general disbursement journals are part of Law Society compliance documents, which we will see in the second part of the webinar today, okay? So keep in mind that it's not only trust, but also the general account that you need to maintain proper records of, and maintain all the bank statements, all the canceled checks, receipts, the duplicate deposit slips. And this will definitely in turn help you to prepare your financial statements pretty easend. If I should say, if you're using a program like uLaw, you don't even have to sit and prepare them on your own manually, because at the back end, all the transactions gets connected to the trial balance sheet and income and expense statement, P&L, etc. This will be helpful for you to, definitely know where you stand as a firm, whether you're making a profit or a loss, and what is your area of expertise, basically, whether you're doing great at the real estate or whether you're doing good with the traffic ticket. What is your kind of, what are the challenges, etc. So this is not only for the Law Society perspective. These professional obligations also help you to become more streamlined and responsible, and that way you could guard your firm's health very, very easily. Now, that was about financial management. So definitely these form part of the ledgers, journals, reconciliation documents, and of course, all the balance sheet, trial balances, which of course I'll walk you through at the end when we're doing the compliances for the Law Society. As we move on to business management, like I said, managing your business is equally important as much as you're managing your clients and other legal obligations to be fulfilled. Business management includes choosing a software, making sure it's efficient, and you're not, kind of, you're also doing your regular security checks for all the maintenances. You're also taking care of your passcode security devices, because the kind of information you're handling, which is very sensitive, your client's information, you don't want them to be lost, hacked. There's so much that comes with technology today that you want to make sure you have a robust security on all your mobile devices. And you're able to securely connect remote for all of these emails and voice messages. Basically, today everything is on cloud, and there's nothing that you cannot do on your system from one place or the other. So make sure that when you are choosing any services, could be your legal software that you're using, legal practice management software, or could be like a storage space for your documents, try and go cloud, because with today's world, everything is on cloud, and it's easier for you to access from anywhere, and you don't have to be in one place to access the reports and other documents that you need to. Like I said, I'm not going to emphasize too much on time, personal, and the professional management. Calendar management comes part of time management. So this is something that I wanted to talk about, especially in uLaw, because you have a separate tab called calendar. Now, one of the important things that I think will help you to manage your personal management and your professional management, which is the personal time and the professional time, relatively easy, is by syncing your personal calendars. Now, you could use uLaw calendar, but you still want to sync your personal calendar to make sure that you're able to manage your time efficiently, is by syncing your personal calendar, and you know that all your dates are kind of dates and time, they're kind of booked on your calendar, and easier for you to manage your time without even thinking about looking into two different calendars, and also ensuring this daily, monthly, weekly agenda view. This will help you to understand ahead, and you're also able to docket all the matters right from the calendar. So using a calendar is like a shortcut to keeping yourself updated about your upcoming meetings, your personal calendar synchronization over there, and all your monthly, weekly, and daily view also in there. So you're able to gather all the information at one go. While saying that, I also would like to say that using a program like uLaw will allow you to understand all of these in one place, where you can look into integrated accounting. You do the accounting in the matter, but you end up doing the reconciliations from the accounts, so which means the accounts are integrated. And it's more like you're not doing the back-end work, where you're not sitting and doing the analysis. You're not reporting anything, but still uLaw will be able to provide you with all the reports and analytic tools, rather reports with the tools that's available within the program. So try and use legal accounting software that would help you to provide all of this information together. And last but not the least, these also help you to provide all the Law Society reports that you need for your audits, for your year-end reporting. And also, let's say, for your own self, to understand what's happening in your practice today, where you're doing better, which one is your, key area of practice. Everything being said there, I want to probably take about a few minutes, maybe 10 to 15 minutes, to go over whatever we discussed as an end-to-end example from our uLaw program. So I hope everyone's seeing my uLaw screen. This is a playground account that I'm going to showcase a few of the features along with a few documents that can be generated from uLaw. I'm sure each of you have your own uLaw account, and you would be probably, practicing at your end. Let's take one example, do end-to-end, starting from maybe a conflict check, creating or intaking a client, doing a conflict check, verifying a client ID, and then opening a file, making sure the cross-indexing of numbers there, file checklist, then saving the file, doing the dockets, invoicing the client, entering the retainer with the retainer agreement in place, transferring the money from trustee general. If there's any excess, how do they get the money into the general account directly? And lastly, also how the business management works with the office expenses and paying bills, etc. Now, this is what I'm going to show you as part of everything practice management. Before I proceed, I'd like to take a quick pause to see if you all have any questions. Catherine or anyone else, any questions? Am I on track? Do you want me to repeat anything or just continue? Please put it on the chat window. I'll take like a minute to look into any of the chats that's in there. All right, we're good so far. Awesome. So over here, we are right now in the context that once all of you log in, dashboard is kind of the landing page for the software. And most of the times when you log in, it could ask you for a two-factor authentication because we want to make sure it's you who's logging in. And you could either email yourself the code or text yourself the code, enter it, and you'd be able to go further. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick pause here. Does uLaw come with sample retainer contracts? Yes, you would see them under the matter. I will definitely show you in the next 5 minutes. I have a question. I just signed into uLaw and is asking me if I want to start a free trial. Just ignore that, please. You must be having your own account, if I'm not wrong. So just ignore that. Start a free trial for you yet. That is for new entrepreneurs or legal professionals who are practicing. Okay. All right, so right now, let's say once you're logged in, it'll ask you for a two-factor authentication. You approve you get approved by submitting the code. Once you're in there, let's say you're under contacts. Now this is technically where you start off with the work. You start off with adding new clients. Now there are different ways you could add a client. Number one, you could just do a simple old school method of clicking on add new client and enter the client's name, manually, and all the other information to be added manually. If not, the next thing is to go to document generation on the top right corner, download a client intake form, send it across to them, ask them to fill it out. Once they give it back to you, all that you're going to do is validate all the fields, make sure everything is in place, and then you save it, go back to uLaw. Again, right-hand side top corner, you see import contact, and upload the client intake form that they're submitting with you. Now, this is the second method to do it. Now, the third one, which is the recent method, is the client portal. Now, you could just add a client's email ID over here and enter a secret key, and then generate the link by sending your client and yourself an email. And once that's done, your client will receive a link, and they can just simply create their details, enter their details, and send it to you. And there'll be a contact created in uLaw automatically. That's the third and the recent method. Yes, this is for clients who are, very good question, year 16. Yes, this is for clients who are tech savvy and who have internet. Okay, that's why I specifically said the client portal is the third and the newest method for the technology today. So This was created during COVID times. This feature was in during COVID times where people were not able to meet in person, or where they were not able to intake a client manually. They were able to do this electronically. You could also, like I said, download a client intake form and enter the client's information, send it across to them, and get that validated and enter it into the uLaw account. Okay, so let me stick to the old school method. Let's say they came into your office, they met you, they entered the client intake form, and they submitted all the information, source of contact. They said they know you through a friend or a family, through internet advertising. They entered the address. And save it. Yeah, viewer number 43. Since this is a student version, is there a way that I can disable the daily emails being sent to my college email address of the status of uLaw client matters? I think you could do that under settings. There's permission where you could just browse through, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, subscribe for uLaw analytics email. Okay, just say no and save it, and you should stop receiving those emails. And if you don't, just email us on support@ulawpractice.com, and we will send you we'll look into it. All right. I just have a simple request. I'm going to take these sort of questions to the end. So I will allocate about 10 to 15 minutes for just Q&A, guys. So I would request to keep these admin kind of questions to the end. But I would be happy to take any of the questions that we are discussing in relation to the topic right now, so that we could go on the flow with the topic. All right. Thank you. Now I was talking about creating a client. So let's say I've entered the client information in here, and I'm going to create a conflict check, or rather perform a conflict check. It's pretty simple. You click on action. There's a client's name. Right above the client's name is action. You click on conflict check. Make sure there's no conflict. Now, this is my step one when I have a potential client. I first want to make sure there's no conflict, right? So this needs to be done. Upon doing this, you can then decide whether you're going to proceed with it or not. Okay. Now, over here, you have to give about a minute for you to have the conflict check in place. Now, these are the potential conflicts. You have so many Bob, so many Sam, so many similar sounding name or half name, Sam, Samuel, etc. There's nothing that is exactly matching to the current name. So I would just like to proceed with the file by simply clicking on Matter and opening the files. Now, this is where the file indexing number and other things play a role. So you're going to just simply keep it as whatever is the file issue for, and maybe you want to enter the area of practice. Let's say you're doing multiple area of practices. You want to keep a tab on what is happening, and you enter it over here. And once that's done, let's say you also have a code file number and a matter description. And then if you're hourly rate, you go ahead and enter that. If you're doing all of those, use your assistant rate, save it. Now this will automatically give me like a file number on the top. So if you all see, the file number is right here. Then the first thing you want to do is go to compliance and download a retainer letter. One of you had asked me about the retainer letter format. So let's say it's available right under compliance tab under retainer letter. You download it and uLaw gives out a retainer letter that is probably in line with what Law Society gives out or is asking you to keep in, as a retainer letter, making sure you have all of the points noted down there. Oh, you cannot see the page? It's on the conflict check. That's weird. Give me one moment. How about now? Can you all see the matters page? Okay. I have a strong internet at my end, like it's pretty good. Not sure. Is everyone able to see the traffic ticket page, the matter page? I'm currently in matters. I'm about to also show you all the retainer agreement. Can you see my retainer agreement? Okay, great. Perfect, thank you. Not sure, Catherine. Sometimes there's a lag. Sorry about that. Okay, so right now we're in a retainer agreement. Just make sure that it's a simple retainer letter with the details of yourself and your client and description of services, fee, termination details, and how do you want to do the disbursements, and other things that you could make sure you can keep it in the the agreement right there. And then once you're done, let's say, for example, the client pays you their $500 retainer that you've asked for, which is right here. The retainer sum of 500. Let's say once they've given that, you go into the matter. You've received it. When did you receive it? Maybe let's say on 31st of Jan. You entered it. How did you receive it? It was a simple email transfer that you received from the client. And then provide the client's information and the receipt from. Provide them with a receipt. There's a tiny little box. So just imagine you don't have to kind of worry about doing all this manually yourself. Okay. And you download the receipt, provide it to them. So once the receipt is provided today to the client and you proceed with the overall work, which is where the matter events comes into picture. Add new event. Let's say you met with the client and then it's a 1 hour meeting. That's the duration on the left-hand side. But you want to charge them something, which is where the billable time comes into picture. You could either do whatever time you took to meet up with them or work on it, or you could do a different time. You can book them something lesser than that, or you decide to do a complete free of the first meeting. Could just say autofill pro bono. So there are different types that you could just adopt and save it. Oh, there's also description. You can record it into the mic. Met up with a client on 1st of February and discussed about upcoming case hearing. You can stop that. You can convert it speech to text. And the best part is they also have AI tools that would probably enhance whatever you spoke into the mic. then do notes to summary, and within seconds you see a detailed description of whatever you discussed. And if it's suitable to your conversation, just go ahead and make it as a description and apply it. Save it. That would be coming up on your invoice later on. The next thing I want to do is show you all a simple, billable time. Total full billable. I also want to show a flat rate, even though it took you about 2 hours. You want to do a flat rate of 250 or 300. Save it. I'm not sure, Catherine. Maybe I suggest you log off the meeting and log back into the meeting. That might be helpful. I can see someone saying, gave you a number of 43 and 16, can confirm that they can see your screen. Maybe, Catherine, you want to log off the meeting and log back in? That way you can see everything. I'm going to continue just for the benefit of time. Let me know if you want me to pause otherwise. Okay, thank you. All right, so let's say now the client provided you with a $500 retainer. You entered that in here. And then you've also entered a few of the dockets here. I want to do a disbursement to show you all. Add new disbursement. And you are basically dispersing something from your general account for courier charges. Plus taxes. Taxes. Maybe you spend for this using the debit card. You have a reference number and save it. Catherine, are you able to see it now? I believe you've joined back the meeting. I'm assuming. Yes, we are on the matter page. We were entering disbursement, so we have a disbursement entered in there. There's a retainer. There are a few dockets. It's time for me to raise an invoice so I can transfer the $500 lying in the trust to the general account, make it mine. And the client owes you some additional money, which you can get into the general account directly. All right. So click on invoice, complete invoice. Okay, just simply download the invoice. Upon downloading the invoice, first thing you've got to do is send the invoice to your client and make sure that everything is in order. Okay, and your client agrees to the invoice. Make sure that they pay you the amount that is due. Into the general account is fine, or you get it into the trust again and move it into the general account is fine too. Okay, now let's say you want to click on question mark. First thing first, transfer the money that belongs to you. You do this in the bank, then come back into uLaw. complete it in uLaw. And complete the transfer. You can also download a Form 9 to be compliant with Law Society. This is something that Law Society would like to see upon doing an electronic fund transfer. Okay, I can go back in there. Is there a way to show on the account that the invoice has been paid? I have a nice question here. So is there a way to show on the account that the invoice has been paid either in full or partially by trust? So there's something, if I'm understanding this question right, if you look at this invoice here that I just built, very clearly says that the invoice has been, this is a complete invoice, and the payment has been partially done, and that is the reason why the remaining amount is due here. This is one of it. And if you want to show on the invoice specifically that, the amount has been only partially done, then you will have to put it on the notes. There's additional notes here in the description or in the notes. You could send them a note upon doing it. But if you're looking at the invoice, it should already tell you clearly that you have received $500 into the retainer so far, and the invoiced amount was so much, and your client still owes you so much. This by itself speaks for partial entry in partial payment into the trust. If it's paid in full, you can just simply go on to the receipt when you're creating an invoice. There is mark as paid, and you can mark as paid if it's completely paid. If it's partial, it's automatically going to show you amount due. Is that clear? Right. So let's say that you have transferred the money from Treasury General, you've done the Form 90. What's remaining is the client owes you some additional amount. So the total amount that you're about to receive is 183.65. Try entering 184 just in case the client sent you a wrong amount. Unfortunately, uLaw will not allow you to enter the wrong amount or higher amount rather. That's a Law Society violation. It'll allow you to enter only or accept the payment only that is, let me tell you, maybe matching your invoice, not more than that, right? So upon doing so, you are entering the money into the general account, the amount that you received, how did they pay you, the reference number, provide them another receipt, and apply it. Okay, that's done. You can download, send it across to them, and keep moving on with your other work. Right now over here, I'd like to show you all a few more documents under compliance that is related to the client matter management. Now, when you're working with the client, it's not always something that is related to client intake or service communication. Obviously, there's more, which is financial management and quarterly statements. This is already available here. There are other documents, non-engagement letters too, and all that you got to do is simply download them, make sure that everything is in order, and you can send it out to them. Okay, now that's done. Let's say we can go into accounts. And I want to show you all how the business management works. Under business management, so far we saw disbursements and documents that's related to a client intake, service communication, and file matter management. When it comes to and of course, a little bit of financial management with all the invoicing and disbursements. With business management, it's not only the client related stuff. It's also a little more than that. Your office expenses, rent, and other utilities, everything that needs to be paid, and if you have other income that needs to be entered here. And there's so much other to do with the business management, which is what you need to be careful with entering into the program. And once that's also done, you can just simply go in here and start connecting your bank. You can start entering the information automatically, or you can also simply enter them manually by clicking on Add Expense, Office Expenses. And you have over here, let's say you paid to Law Society fees, taxes, paid to LSO, paid out of your general account. There was a pre-authorized debit. So you choose the reference number, you choose the method of payment, the reference number, and even submit it. Okay, upon completing that, you have over here action. These are some actions that you could take, either to do a bank transfer to pay your credit card, or to make a trust deposit, or you have other expenses that you want to enter other than office expenses. The client expenses are disbursements, which we already did directly from the client page, which is matter page. And you also have other payments to vendors, payroll, and you could just explore into the action. Mostly capital is where you can inject money into the firm, capital injection, or you want to pay yourself, which is drawings. And if you also see there's taxes available in here for you to be calculating taxes remittance and taxes payable. And when you come into invoice balances, you'll find the invoice balance report as per the client and the client matter. Last but not the least, you will see the compliances. Right now, I'm going to walk you through Law Society compliances for financial management, but I'll also walk you through all the other compliances from other pages too. That is what we're going to talk about in the subsequent topic, which I want to switch over to now. The subsequent topic that we're going to discuss today is Law Society bookkeeping compliances. It's a continuation of whatever we're discussing from the previous topic, because bookkeeping compliances also forms part of everything practice management. So you want to make sure that, once all the work is done with respect to file management, client management, business management, and you want to then, consider gathering all the documents that's necessary for your, financial management compliances and other compliances. So, majorly that I can think of over here are reconciliation statements. Upon completing your month, every month you have to make sure your trust account and your general account are being reconciled. Trust, especially before 25th of every month, you need to reconcile the previous month end. Right now we are in the end of Jan. Okay, so 31st Jan is done. Now, from, 1st Feb has begun. So from 1st Feb to 21st of Feb, you have 25 days time for you to complete the bank reconciliation for trust account alone. don't wait till fag end. I always tell my clients, try to do your reconciliations in the first week. So if you find any mistakes, you could, fix it at your bank. That way, you don't have a bank error that is being carried forward for ages. So all the Law Society reconciliation statements with regards to financial management, starting off with two ledgers, 4 journals, and other documents. Now, whatever I have done today has been recorded at the back end in these ledgers and journals. Now, if I open this, you would see that they're all available readily under ledgers and journals. And right here, when I click on trust, you would see that I had received $500 and how I had billed the client and moved that $500 from trust to the general. Now, this is the trust ledger, right? So I've also transferred the money from trust to the general. There's a $500 balance. Now it's $0 because I've moved it from trust to the general. Along with it, there's also general where I made some expense, which is the courier charges. You would see that, and the transfer from trust to the general to under the client's general ledger. Now you see this is the disbursement, 50 plus taxes, or 55 plus taxes. And then this is the legal fee. This was what was transferred from trust account to the general account. Both together, put together is 500. And this was the payment that was directly paid by the client into the general account. So this is the kind of detail that Law Society would like to see upon, doing your accounts. So you want to make sure that this is the level that you maintain when you do a proper accounting. So as called as financial management. Now, when I do journals, you'd see that there's a much more drilled down version. When you see client trust payments, you will see only the $500 that was received into the trust, right? Unlike other things where, the transfer was made, that's not here, right? Over here, you saw the trust transfer. But over here, you see under the journal, it is only one transaction. Receipt journal will show you only the receipts. It won't show you the transfers that was made, payment or etc. Right? So that way you will be only able to see this. Go back in there. You also get to see the Form 9A for the transfer of $500 that I showed you all earlier, and you can download it again over here. As part of Law Society compliances, you get to see all of these. I just want to take you back in there. What does the Law Society compliance say? When it comes to bookkeeping, we are aware of various methods in which you could do an accounting, right? You could do paper pen method. You could do, a spreadsheet software. You could use a general accounting software like QuickBooks. But what has evolved into a better technology today is using a legal accounting software that's specialized for legal accounting and helps you to keep track of all the records that Law Society needs you to keep track of. And that is what you're probably doing when you do the trust and the general reconciliation and other things, because a normal program or a normal software wouldn't allow you to do all of those, right? So what are these ledgers and journals mean to you? More than what it means to you, what it means to the auditors, what it means to the the Law Society. They get to see each and every transaction that has gone through with the details such as the date, the amount, the description, invoice numbers. They want to see how genuine it is. They want to make sure there's no errors that you have made over here. And each ledger has all the balances, dates, and they can see how much you've received, how much you've dispersed, They also get to see whether it belongs to a single matter or dual matter for the same client. All of these are recorded in here, and slowly you get to understand how it works. And if you're all seeing the screen, and you see there are examples here at the bottom that shows you client's trust ledger and the general ledger. There's a tiny difference between trust ledger and the general ledger, because general ledger has the invoice numbers there, whereas the trust number doesn't have invoice number. And at least for all the transactions. But if you see for general ledger, you'll see each transaction has invoice number in there. Only the transfer from trust to general will have the invoice number. And then in general account, you'll have the HST or GST, basically taxes portion, because it's invoiced, and you will see that the invoice carries the taxes portion separate over there. So that will help you to in turn calculate the taxes that you need to pay to the government, net, after understanding what has been billed and what has been paid. So make sure